Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to start by thanking you all for joining today's webinar. It's great to see so many people attending. My name is Charlie Roger and I'm the marketing manager here at Bullhorn. And today I'm pleased to be joined by Lisa Jones, the founder and director of Barclay Jones, Wayne Barclay, the director at Barclay Jones, and Andy Ingham, the VP of Sales at Bullhorn International. Lisa has been a recruitment, technology and digital marketing professional for nearly 20 years. Her company, Barclay Jones, are an award-winning leaders in recruitment success training, recruitment technology strategy, and digital marketing strategy for the recruitment industry. And as director of Barclay Jones, Wayne brings a huge wealth of experience in recruitment technology, CRM, and websites. His clients love his strategic and impartial advice and how he helps them grow their businesses. He supports recruitment leaders to improve profitability through effective digital marketing and technology solutions. Today's webinar focuses on the techie tips to increase your profit and grow your business by putting your CRM at the center of your process and strategy. But before we jump in and pass things over to Lisa, Andy and Wayne, there are a few housekeeping points. Firstly, the webinar today will last for approximately 60 minutes. Secondly, this webinar is being recorded and we will be sharing that recording with you within the next 24 hours. And finally, there are a series of polls and opportunities to chat to us through the chat function. But if you do have any additional questions, please feel free to ask them through the chat system in the control panel. We'll do our best to either address them during the webinar or we'll follow up with you directly afterwards. That's all for me for now, so I'm going to pass things over to Lisa, Wayne and Andy.
Lovely, thanks very much, Charlie. Welcome, everyone. So it's Lisa from Barclay Jones. I'm joined by Wayne.
Hello.
We are focusing today with the lovely Andy from Bullhorn on ultimately you increasing profit using your Bullhorn system. It's crucial for us that we all understand that you can buy as much kit as you like, but if you're not using it effectively, and here's a statement that will rock your world, you're not going to make any money from it. So we're going to focus on some key things that you can focus on in terms of some practical takeaways. And obviously what we'd like you to do is take notes throughout because we're going to test you at the end, she says. We talk a lot at Barclay Jones, and we have done with Andy as well from Bullhorn, about the 4 C's: candidates, clients, consultants and cash. It's very common in recruitment marketing, recruitment sales, recruitment systems to not have the kind of focus that we really need to make a difference. We are told regularly that recruitment is a very, very simple process, but ultimately what has happened in the last 20 years is the police have come to take me away clearly. What has happened in the last 20 years is that we seem to have made recruitment more complicated. With processes and systems that potentially aren't actually going to deliver a bottom line. So we're going to be very focused on the bottom line today, but obviously we know that you can't just make a sale, or some recruiters can't make a sale just by making one phone call. I'm sure there's the odd recruiter out there that will prove me wrong. Bring it on. The other thing to consider as well is how could we possibly get through any webinar within the next 20 years without talking about Vietnam or GDPR, because it's kind of the same thing. It's like, you know, how can you talk about to anyone in America without mentioning Vietnam in the last 40 or 50 years? So we see CRM first, or Bullhorn first, as the antidote to GDPR. We see GDPR as a bit of a breath of fresh air, albeit it was a bit of a smack in the face for some of us. But actually, if we'd have cleaned up our data and did some of the things that we're going to talk to you about today a number of years ago, then GDPR would have just been something to blink at, as opposed to stop our businesses for. So let's take this in the manner in which it's meant, which is really positive. Let's look at the way that we can drive our CRM to deliver great business process and ultimately profit. So let's focus on the first thing that I'm very passionate about and have been for a number of years, which is data. Could I even get away with saying that? But ultimately what I want to know is, are you making data-driven decisions? So what I'd like you to do is talk to me about this just by clicking on your screens with your mouse and letting me know what you think. Looks like a bit of a 50-50 split, if I'm honest, to obviously help us understand that 50% of you are making data-driven decisions and the other lot of you, well, God knows, whiteboards, pens, pigeons, tea leaves, tea leaves, who knows. Thank you for that. Now, you might have heard at Barclay Jones was talking about data being the new oil, and we certainly created a fantastic podcast with Cube19 a few weeks back. Could you please pop into your chat facility and type in Cube19 if you would like us to send you a copy? I think it's about 20 minutes podcast, them talking about data being the new oil, or is it? Really, really interesting. It's not about Cube19, it's about what they think, and if you're going to trust anybody in the recruitment data space, you're going to trust the stuff that comes out of their mouths. So have a think about that, please, and we'll send that on to you. Now, there's a lot of discussion online about this. If you just type in data is the new oil, you'll get it everywhere. But actually, there's an argument to say that data isn't the new oil. And interestingly, Cube 19 do talk about this. Whether or not they got this from Forbes is irrelevant. But actually, oil is a finite resource. And as much as I don't want to get political today, it is a finite resource, whereas data, whether we like it or not, is not a finite resource. It's infinite and scarily infinite. It might even be that you want to go into your chat facility now and give me to the nearest year how long you have been in recruitment. Because if you've been in recruitment a long time, you'll know that, or you'll probably agree, that when there was less data available, we were more profitable as individuals. So that's something for us to maybe think about. Because I'm not convinced that we suffer from a candidate shortage, especially in the UK. Now, we could argue the toss about this, and I'm very happy to do that outside of this webinar, but when I work with recruiters to improve their processes, improve their data, and get their recruiters and marketeers delivering more profit into the business, they don't suffer from a lack of candidates at all. They suffer from a lack of interested candidates. And that's a real challenge for us, because if GDPR has taught us anything or woken us up, it's woken us up to the fact that we need to create more legitimate interest in the business. We need to create more happiness from the people that we're dealing with. So if data is the new oil and everyone's talking about it, oh my God, it's so valuable. But actually, we are creating a bit of a, I mean, if any of you out there have ever dug for oil or watched a movie about it, you'll know that it's a relatively sticky process. It's a relatively dirty process. It's a process that often is a very manual process. And often what happens is recruiters are just too busy digging for oil. They're just too busy to see what's right in front of them. They get really sticky. They get so stuck to the oil that they can't even pick up the phone, which is still a mantra 20 years into my recruitment career that I'm still hearing people having to remind people to do. There is this perception that there's a lack of candidates, and this causes stress in the recruitment process. Rigorous stress that creates cracks in relationships and systems and budgets, and it overloads the systems and creates ill-defined and unmeasurable processes. And actually, in brackets, when I'm mentoring all of my marketeers that I work with in recruitment, they're saying to me, do you know what? I'm not even being given access to my CRM, and even if I had the luxury of that, the data is pants. And then what happens is we speak to recruiters and they tell us that 80% of the placements they made last year were made from data they already had but hadn't sourced from their CRM. How crazy is that? So we're digging, and I always say to recruiters, dig up, stupid. You've already got it. You've already got it. So you've got to think about how much data you actually need. And as much as I'm probably shining a light on a problem that you know you all have, you've got to take some time out today and really think about what you're going to do. Don't just waste 30 to 40 minutes on this webinar going, yeah, she's kind of right. Think about what you are actually going to do, because you could get to the end of this year, which will zip past in a blink, and actually have the database of your dreams if you get this sorted, not just the database that the government wants you to have, which is GDPR compliant. So think about it from this perspective. Nice and simple takeaway. How many recruiters do you have? How many contacts do they actually need? Not want. How many do they need? And how many candidates do they need? Now, if you go on an AXCO training course, and there's a lot of them out there, really good stuff to help recruiters become more engaged with process, they'll tell you that you need 650. I'm a little bit on the fence with this, because when I've worked with recruiters and looking at their processes and how they get Bullhorn working more effectively with them, when they've tried to work to the 650 model, which is 200 contacts and 450 candidates, it's a big deal. That it might not feel like very much, but to get that data clean and making money from them is a big deal. So I always say this: start with 50 contacts, 100 candidates, get that data clean, get it engaged with, send it regular content, make regular calls, and when you have absolutely bled that dry, chuck another 50 onto each pile and start again, and keep going until you hit your seam. Again, we're talking about mining, we're talking about oil, but do that until you strike proper oil, not just the muddy stuff that you have to refine. And think about also what your marketing team needs to do to nurture and convert. And ultimately, how are they going to do this if they don't even access to that data in the first place? So if you've got 1 million records on your database, and there's only 2 of you in your company, well, 1, clever you. 2, maybe segment it into the data you need and give the rest to your marketing department to warm up and get them to generate MQLs, or marketing qualified leads. Don't reserve being a great marketeer for the big boys out there. The smaller SMEs out there should more than easily be able to get the marketeers and the recruiters generating proper leads from their data. And here's my data layer. Now, we do everything in triangles in Barclay Jones. And the triangle for us is the data layer that we work with with our clients. So we look at their data and we say, right, what have you not got yet that you really, really need? And how are you going to know when it comes in, whether or not it's viable? Then think about the data you might have placed in the last 3 to 5 years, maybe, people that you would be forgiven for picking up the phone to, people that you've actively engaged with or invoiced with or sent for interview. What are you doing with them? How regularly are you communicating with them? And then work your way further down if those first 2 layers are not feeding you enough quality. So the third layer is yesterday's data. And I'm talking about clients that just didn't really bite down firmly enough. Candidates that maybe were fit for purpose, but you just, if you're honest, didn't engage with properly. Those top 3 layers will have the business of your dreams hidden within. It's just you don't have a process maybe right now to make that work. Because what you're doing is you're so focused on the bottom of that dump, that data dump, and you're focused on all of the data, the fear of missing out data that you've been collecting for years that GDPR has told you you may not need. Now, maybe you've been very clever or creative with your data and you've deleted a lot of it, but maybe you've still got a level 4 in your business of data that you can't place within the next 12 months, clients that you can't sell to, but you're worried about whether it's convertible. That's the data your marketeers really need to be nurturing. Giving that to your recruiters is a total distraction for them. They need to be focused on what they can place and retain now. So get practical. Think about segmenting your data into those 4 very simple layers. Have plans for each segment, and those plans are very simple, 2 or 3 things that you need to do with each segment. So when they come into the business, what do you do with them? How do you keep them warm? What mailing lists do they go on? Think about the level 2s, which are the people that you've already placed or invoiced. What are you doing with them to keep them happy? I mean, I send birthday cards to my clients, and it's not a difficult thing to do, and it's certainly not a massively time or cost erosive process either. Think about your salespeople. They might have KPIs for doing loads of crazy things, but ultimately, what are they doing to keep clients on board and keep them happy? And what is marketing doing to drive great data into the sales office? So we want you to be really, really smart. Think about only processing the minimum data that you need and give the rest to marketing to nurture. And obviously get it from public spaces, because GDPR is telling us now if we buy stuff or we bring it in via a black book or via a pigeon, then we're going to be in a really difficult state. And of course, the goal of this webinar is to give you some practical tips. All of this data needs to be on your CRM system. So from Bullhorn's perspective, do you guys have anything to add to this in terms of data and segmentation and getting value from it?
Hey, thanks, Lisa. This is Andy from Bullhorn, everyone. I think some great tips and hints there from Lisa. It's certainly within the Bullhorn application, and when we're thinking about the core front office CRM, there is definitely a tendency to be, overly data rich. But we work really hard within the application and across the product roadmap to drive automatic data capture wherever possible. And that doesn't just mean applying more and more data and useless data into the database, but data that you can derive insights from and start taking actionable measures moving forward to drive greater success. And then I think another key thing to mention there, thinking about overload of data, is it would be remiss of me if I didn't point out that there's deduplication software, so like built into the core Bullhorn application. So if you, great statistic there in terms of 80% of placed candidates are like buried somewhere within the existing database. But if you're bringing candidate data into the Bullhorn application and it already exists, then the deduplication checker will be flashed up there, and we can kind of avoid creating messy data through sloppy actions.
Fantastic. Thanks ever so much for that, Andy. Okay, so we're now going to talk about integrations, or rather, Andy is going to lead the way from an integrations perspective with a little bit of Wayne Barclay thrown in.
Okay, thank you, Lisa. So Andy here again. So when we pivoting, I guess, from Lisa's commentary there around data, we will be very easy to fall into a trap to kind of think about your data, your primary data source, and maybe sometimes your own data source sits inside that front office application.
so residing very much inside inside your CRM, so inside Bullhorn in this case. But we really sort of like view CRM as being the tool to ensure that your recruiters at a desk level are maximising the deal potential, and secondly, so like driving the best possible experience from both the candidate and client perspective. But the old adage rings true. The data that you have in your system is only as good as it is accurate, and you've really got to work hard to make sure that data is cleansed, and you have multiple data sources inside the business. And this is where the Bullhorn marketplace comes into play. So if we could move forward. Perfect, thank you, Lisa. So here you're viewing, I'll apologize now, a rather complex or busy slide, but let me kind of talk you through this because the concept is super simple to understand. So at the core of the slide there, you have the core Bullhorn applications. So a lot of you, many of you will be using those applications today. You see the core sort of like CRM and ATS applications, and then we have some extended applications that I'll talk about later on in the webinar. But the layer above there, where you see the marketplace, is really the app store for Bullhorn. So we go out into the market across the various specific solutions there that you see, from a sourcing, candidate evaluation, engagement marketing, recruitment and sales productivity, and then measuring and managing, and source best of breed tech solutions which are very much staffing specific. So there are very few sort of generic applications, if you will, built into the marketplace. These are staffing specific solutions that our clients work with like day in, day out. And the concept of the marketplace is really to extend that whole integrations play. So what you don't want to be doing, or what you do want to be doing, should I say, is keeping your recruiters inside your front office CRM. That's where you want them to live. But obviously, there's other applications inside the business that are necessary to kind of create that front to back or end to end workflow. So the Bullhorn marketplace is essentially repeatable integrations that we've already built. So, on the slide there in that middle section, you are only seeing a selection of the marketplace, but they're probably our most popular marketplace partners that our clients work with, and we have built repeatable integrations too. What do I mean by repeatable integrations? I mean that's a turnkey solution. So there's no cost in terms of switching that integration on. If you're working or want to work with any of our marketplace partners there, then we can turn those integrations on for you by contacting our support team. And the benefit there is that we're talking about two-way data flow here. So we'll come on later in the webinar to kind of talk about reporting and the value of analytics inside your solution suite, if you will. But actually having that two-way data flow and enabling what could be mid or back office data to be represented and acted on inside front office application at a recruiter at a desk level becomes very powerful in terms of driving adoption and usage of your investment inside Bullhorn. You'll see two additional layers towards the top of the slide, which are our developer and our enterprise partners. So developer partners, just to provide color around this is where it's a complex solution, and so there isn't necessarily a repeatable marketplace integration, and these are built bespoke at a client level. And our enterprise partners, as you can see, really sort of like hit some of the robust sort of like enterprise applications across the marketplace that you may very well want integrated inside your Bullhorn application for a whole raft of extendable reasons, and kind of picking on Marketo there and to Lisa's previous comments around marketing, then making sure you've got that front to back data flow and you're kind of tracking. If you think about Lisa's layer 4 in the triangle, you're through Marketo as a product, and you can nurture those select candidate records that have maybe gone off boil, and bring those back and start delivering value to your recruiters. So data we take seriously. It's obviously our job, but very much extending that thought process from not just front office data and the data that's sitting in your CRM, but driving value through integrations and bringing that back and mid office data right up front, so the recruiters at a desk level can act on it, and you can start realizing commercial benefits from your investments.
Brilliant. Thanks, Andy. There's some really good points in there. Some other things to take into consideration regarding integrations. Andy's hit the nail on the head. What you really want to achieve is understanding what data you want to capture. Recruiters are normally very good at missing out stages of the recruitment lifecycle. I had several clients who have basically said anything that a consultant doesn't do, you should automate. And a great way of automating some of those processes is by having integrations directly back into your recruitment CRM system. Before you start an integration, though, you need to understand what its role and what its process and what its purpose is there to do. So there's normally a problem or there's an opportunity. Just mentioned one, which is lazy recruiters. So understand exactly what the opportunity or the role of the integration is going to do. Understand what you hope to achieve. And make sure you understand who owns that integration. Who's going to be responsible for that piece of software once it's gone live? Once you've done that, draw up a clear job description. If everyone understands what it's here to do, then it's easy to communicate that to the rest of the business, and ultimately it's very easy then to train people and then track the integration and track the progress and the opportunities of that integration back into the business and capture that data. Finally, once it's been tested, you need to test it. Always an area that's slightly overlooked. You need to release it, and one of the critical things is once it's been released, review. Make sure you review how well it's being used, how well it's integrated, and make sure you're getting value from it. And if you're not getting value from it, go and speak to the partner. Tell them that you're not getting as much value from it, and they will more than happily sit down with you and discuss that.
Fantastic. Now we do have a poll for you that's going to come up. The lovely Charlie's probably going to whack a button really quickly. Lots of sourcing happening outside the database, which is just crazy town. It's like being a technologist in recruitment for quite a while. The only thing you really truly own is the data that you've got on your systems. And there's an argument to say that 6 months ago, the data you had on your systems wasn't as clean as what it is now. And obviously, thank God for the European Union allowing us to go through this process and clean our databases up. But in the meantime, what we have hopefully got as a result of that is a finely tuned set of data that we can take to our clients and say, okay, yes, we don't have 500 million people on our CRM like LinkedIn does, but actually LinkedIn's not a great place to place candidates. I'm not saying it's not a great place, it's a great place, but if you were an aerospace recruiter or an accountancy recruiter or a vet recruiter, you need to prove this through your database and the way that you nurture that data. And you can't do that if all you're doing is what the client can do for themselves. So that's worth thinking about that. Talking about people, one thing that GDPR has taught me over the last few months is you can clean up the data, but you obviously need to clean up your processes and the way your people actually actively engage with your business and how they're doing stuff. So one of your takeaways today is to almost like admit to yourself that potentially you've not given your people the chance to really sell effectively. And I'm talking about selling from an inbound selling perspective, as in creating an environment, allowing people to call you, God forbid, and also allowing your recruiters to basically build relationships and obviously make more money and placements. But what I want to start off with is the quiet lot in the corner. There's a couple of marketers on the session today, and I'm obviously going to be hammering my marketing community with this webinar afterwards, aka the colouring in department. So if you are guilty of looking at your marketeers and saying, if they left tomorrow, it wouldn't really make much of a difference, although I wouldn't have any pretty brochures anymore, then that's a problem. If you are guilty of asking them to do lots of things that you think are going to help you with marketing, but not actually getting them to generate leads, or the 4 Cs, candidates, clients, consultants, and cash, then this is important too. So my job is to work with marketeers as well as recruitment IT people and recruiters, just to raise expectations of what marketing can and should be doing. Because what we're suffering from in the recruitment industry, and GDPR has really taught us a lesson in this, is we're suffering from option paralysis. Too much data, not enough process. Too much data, not enough information. Too much data, not enough candidates, that we still, 70% of us are sourcing outside of the system, which is just crazy town. So I just think a great recruitment business has a marketeer or 2 or 20 working with recruiters, and when that marketeer is walking across the sales floor, the recruiters are literally like baby birds going, I hope she's got something for me, I hope he's got something for me. Whereas right now they're often very disconnected, and you've got recruiters using every system and process out there, probably apart from their CRM, working totally independently and behaving in what I've called hairdressers for the last 20 years. And a hairdresser for me is normally a highly skilled, clever person, but maybe renting space from the office that they're working in, i.e. they're kind of doing things their way. They're kind of bringing in their own candidates and clients, but when they go, there is a risk that they'll take them with them. And whilst they're there, as long as they're making money, everyone's happy, which to me is very short-sighted. So we've got to think about marketers generating the 3 C's, candidates, clients, consultants, obviously not just content, obviously not just clicks, and obviously not just colour, ultimately the cash. Because their job is to create an environment where if the government came to you, God forbid, a couple of years ago and said, can you please only keep the data that has a legitimate interest in being with you, you wouldn't all have a panic attack. Now, if you would like further information on how GDPR could be good for you from an email marketing perspective and what you can actually do, because you can do a lot, you know. You can probably do more than you realise, and you probably can do more than you are doing right now, then just put the word GDPR into your chat facility and I will send you my latest blog on what you can specifically do, and it's not my opinion, it's based on real quotes from the legislation that actually mean something. And it also helps you talk to your candidates and clients when they ring you up and say, how very dare you email me, and you can say, well, I can because the legislation dictates that I can. Anyway, so your marketeer's job is to create legitimate interest. It's to create that ploughed field ready for recruiters to go in. And then, of course, the recruiters get in there. And they're the great untrained, bless their hearts. But it's okay, and I'm going to play with you here. They're young, they know what they're doing, it's all about tech. And I'm like, when was recruitment ever about tech? When was it ever about tech? Surely it was about talking. Surely it was about understanding problems. Surely it was about getting under the skin of clients. You may not have trained your recruiters as effectively as you think to use your systems. Significant amount of people lacking, very hit and miss. Okay-ish is the middling ground. They mean well, but I can't make it, you know, and only 4% of you are telling us perfectly that you can track all your candidates. Now, again, please think about this. I'm a big fan of the following, that if you have any statistics in your business that you would not want your mum, your boss, or your clients to know about, then fix them. And 96% of you have said that your CRM system is not a USP, it's not a business generator, it's not a lead magnet, it's not a candidate converter. So you're actually saying to your 3 C's, your candidates, your clients, and your consultants, it's not really worth being on it, is it? That's what you're saying. But I want you to think about how that might be used as an objection by your recruiters, be they real or prospect, by your candidates and clients, be they real or prospect. Have a think about that. Because 84% of new starters don't have a formalized training program that is basically more than 2 weeks, which is something to think about. Because I don't know about you, but if all of you started a new job today, do you really think you'd have it cracked in 2 weeks? I kind of think you'd probably know where the toilets are and have a rough idea about who your top clients might be within that time. Only 17% of recruiters check their CRM first, which is pants, by the way. So that's something to think about. And we also know at the same time that 91% of recruitment leaders that we asked last year said to us, but no, my staff, they use their CRM first. And we're like, yeah, they've told us they don't. So who's right anyway? 45% of recruiters go, CRM, yeah, whatever. And a lot of them just basically don't use the CRM, and that includes managers. So we really need to think about what impact that's actually having on our businesses. Now, you've got to think about the term PIBCAC. I've been in IT quite a long time, and it was something we used to have a joke about in my younger days. I'd be on the IT help desk and, oh, I've got another PIBCAC. The problem in between the chair and the keyboard, which is often the marketeer, the manager, the finance person, the compliance person, the director. But ultimately what we're talking about is there is a problem, and you've got to think about whether or not you suffer from this issue. Can you give me a PIBCAC in your chat if you think you suffer from this problem in your business? It's a very common problem, and one that I don't have a quick pill for, but one that obviously does need fixing, because you can spend as much money and time on your database as you wish, but if people aren't going to use it, then obviously we have a challenge. What we often find is you'll be training your recruiters to use a system when the system is bought, and then you won't think about doing it ever again. And you'll probably also focus on certain types of individuals within the business as well, and not the ones that are actually going to manage the change. So have a think about that. Stop buying systems for your people. Buy the systems for your business. There's a big difference. And make sure that your program does not last the duration of it takes to turn on the system. You know, if you want them to change their behaviors, they need regular training, coaching, whatever you want to call it. Think about CRM first. Think about that only 17% of recruiters out there are actually using the CRM first, but actually most of them are going externally and using external systems to place stuff. And I want you to think about how much that's actually costing you. You might be using LinkedIn for free, but when you actually add up how much time that's taking, that could be 50% of someone's day. And when you annualize that from a salary perspective, that is an awful lot of money. Could you tell me whether or not you think Bullhorn is first in your business? Beautiful. Imagine, please, that you have a team of 30 recruiters. The national average is actually 10, and that's an easy figure. But actually, for a lot of you, slightly above that. So you've got 30 recruiters wasting 30 minutes sourcing a week from the wrong system. 30 minutes faffing about with data that doesn't really belong to them. 30 minutes looking at data that's not really engaged and has never come to them before. Think about that lost time and the opportunity cost of that time on the business. And then think about this very busy slide, but there's actually a pink J right in the middle of it. And those of you that love reading business books will have come across the J curve, where you basically say, look, we're going to make a change to the business. And here's where we are right now. Oh, look up there, look up there. That's where we want to be. We want to be right up there. So then what we do is we kind of make a plan and we say, right, let's go for it. And within the first few days, it completely bottoms out. You go into what's called the valley of doom. Now, what happens here is that basically we probably don't anticipate how slow people might be getting using the system. It might make them a bit sluggish to begin with. So obviously that's where change can die. And then we kind of scrape ourselves out of that valley a little bit and we end up somewhere. And actually the statistics say we end up to sort of achieving 50% of our goals, which is pretty pants. What we obviously want you to be thinking about is building a change plan that's going to get you to where you want to be, not just to where you kind of are satisfied because you're a bit knackered now. Something for you to think about. So warn people about that curve. Make sure that the training you're giving people is really, really focused on something called the 70-20-10 rule. And this is really, really simple. The idea being is, are you only focused on 10% of their learning? And what we're saying about this is if you're sat in front of a system right now, 10% of the way you used it, someone showed you in a classroom. The other 20% is what others have shown you. And the final 70% is everything else that's going on around you. So really have a think about that and have a think about the impact of what that means for your business. Have a think about the fact that if you're training people in a classroom to use Bullhorn, for example, there's another 90% worth of training that you might be missing out. And you need to also be thinking very much as a takeaway of not just training on the system, but training on the behaviors that you want to debug. Debug the process that's preventing you from making money, preventing you from capitalizing on those 4 C's. Now, talking about people, we're going to move on to managers now. And this is again where Andy can add some value. Over to you, Andy.
Thanks, Lisa. So we're thinking about managers and thinking about leadership. Bullhorn produces annual trend survey. And when we look back at the 2017 and 2018 results, then outside, the pressures that we hear, and Lisa alluded to earlier around candidate shortage, we also see very high turnover within the industry. And this is made even more evident when you consider the number of new businesses that open in the sector. So the number of startups, that are created within the sector just on an annual basis. And some data that I've been reviewing suggests as many as 9,000 over the last 24 months, which is a significant or creates a significant amount of churn, so like within the organisations that are out there today, and brings in that whole concept of employee portability within the market. But in the real world, that kind of leads to 3 real problems, certainly for the existing agencies that have invested in their people, that have invested in training, that have invested in their applications and kind of growing out their candidate and client base. So think about it in this concept in terms of the issues that high employee turnover creates. So user adoption. If you do have high churn within your organization, that means you've got to backfill and you've got to pedal faster in order to stay still when it comes to growing your business. And that user adoption in terms of becoming productive on your application, so on your Bullhorn CRM, needs to be as efficient and as effective as possible. So a very clean So like interactive, user-friendly UI goes a long way to supporting that. And can sort of help in terms of that onboarding and training issue of your new hires. But think about this as the detrimental side of this as well. So think about lost relationships. So, if your top recruiter exits your business, then unless you've got mitigation or, either in your processes or in your application, so, lots of comfort there for Bullhorn users, and I'll explain why in a second. But as that rep, as that top biller walks out the door, then those relationships are going to go with him. And, it's going to be very easy for them to sort of rekindle those relationships at, their new startup or the new agency that they brought to. But also kind of pivoting back to the new hires, but also the existing productivity across your sales teams. And think about goals and quotas and how do you track performance against the KPIs that you want to drive as a business, the goals that you want to set strategically as a business, without that being or without that becoming sort of a cumbersome or super labor-intensive activity. And that's what I want to focus on today. So taking 5 minutes out here really so I go through some screenshots here of some of the inherent applications inside Bullhorn that enable you to manage the performance of your teams in real time, and that's super important. So, Lisa, if we could move forward to the first screenshot, and we'll take a look at real-time dashboards. So, for anyone out there using Bullhorn Enterprise Edition, this is within your application today. So, this is out-of-the-box technology and functionality, and we view dashboards as being like real-time information against many sort of entities that you can report on from a dashboard perspective. And dashboards provide those insights for an individual recruiter, for a team of recruiters, right up to the executive and owner level, where you can look across the whole entire organization. And these are fully customizable. So although these are out-of-the-box technology, you customize these to drive the information and the insights at either my dashboard, which is the individual's dashboard, or onto the entity dashboards when you're looking at so like beyond KPIs and you're kind of looking at jobs or vacancies or candidate health and things like that. So dashboards super useful in terms of like providing that real-time information and progress to the activities that you want to drive. Let's move on to Pulse. And Pulse really is all around relationship analytics. So if we kind of recall back to Lisa's earlier comments around how you nurture candidates, how you protect your clients, then this is really what Pulse does. And Pulse really provides very deep and detailed analytics into the relationships that you have across both your client and your candidate base. It flags for you potential issues in those relationships. So looking at trends either within communication, frequency of communication, even down to the analytics and the words used inside email communication between yourself and your candidates or yourself and your clients, to provide like health warnings in terms of where maybe relationships need a little bit of TLC, and by taking some immediate action or executive action, then you can course correct there to drive a better outcome. But also looking into, again, those performance metrics. So some of the Pulse cards that you're seeing on the screen there, we're looking at conversation activity. So over time there, you're looking at the conversation activity in terms of how frequently, your individual or your organization is kind of reaching out to clients or specific candidates, or even individuals within a candidate. So if you're, maybe you're tracking your top 5 clients across the organization, it gives you a real instant view into how the frequency of the communications going backwards and forwards between your individuals and your important relationships there. Email tracking is proprietary inside Bullhorn, so it's done automatically at a server level. You don't need to track a single email. The system will do it all for you, and those can all be recorded through the activity tab inside Bullhorn. But with Pulse, we go one step further. So we actually analyze the content of every email that's sent backwards and forwards and provide that as an analytics view into the health of that relationship and also use keyword flagging technology to identify any potential issues or opportunities that you may want to be aware of. Phone activities are kind of built in there through the integration. So once again, giving you that spot check activity around, exactly what telephone activity is happening either at a recruiter level or even like conversations in between yourself and a top candidate, or yourself or your organisation, sorry, and a top client. And the whole engagement piece. So really pulling together in terms of, what does the engagement, and this is specifically useful at a client level, when you're trying to break into new areas of business. What does your holistic relationship look like with that client, which maybe has multiple offices, multiple hiring managers, but Bullhorn's telling you you're only connected with 2 of them. And inside your organization who owns those relationships, and who those relationships are with, and what the tenure of those relationships are, and kind of providing super useful insights in terms of next steps for fostering and really generating new business there. And then we move on to Net Promoter Score. So I'm sure everyone on the call will be familiar with Net Promoter Score, but this is a tool that's actually built into the application. So if you're not using this today, by all means pick up the phone to your account manager, or pick up the phone to support, and they'll talk you through how to activate Net Promoter Score. But really getting point in time and over time insights into the health of those client relationships. So we're using a very simple NPS tool that's native inside the application. And to move on to thank you very much. So finally, before we jump into a poll, let's talk about activity goals and quotas. So this may not be revolutionary, and I really hope that everyone on the call who's utilizing the Bullhorn application is utilizing goals and quotas, because this information is passively tracked inside the system to produce those KPI scorecards and the goals and quotas achievement, whether that's at an individual level or across a team or a function within the business. So in line with your strategy, you set the goals and quotas. Bullhorn is very extendable in terms of its incumbent reporting capabilities. So you can report against activity levels or placement levels, a very wide and extensive series of KPIs. But then because these actions are driven through Bullhorn, obviously Bullhorn can automatically report on that. And boy, as a side effect, is that a great way to drive adoption of the application? Because if your teams know that you're going to be measuring them on certain activity, which they have to record inside your invested CRM, then I'm pretty sure they're going to make sure they do that to obviously shine when it comes to goals and quotas and KPI management. But everything I talked through there are all built into the native Bullhorn application, and these are great tools as leaders, as managers, as business owners that you can use to drive the right behavior. And the right behavior is the behavior you want to drive, because Bullhorn is extremely customizable. So you can drive the behavior you want to drive your business benefit. So I think I'm handing back over to Lisa now, and we're going to jump into a poll.
Right, lovely. Thanks, everybody. Yes, Charlie, could you ask the question, how frequently are you reporting on your team's activity KPIs? I think the absolute key from what obviously we've just heard from Andy is it's never been easier to measure the activity of our recruiters and that of our marketeers, etc. But the problem is if they're not actually following the process, then there will be no activity to measure. So that's something for you to obviously think about. The other thing I'd like you to think about as well is that when we've worked with recruiters to get them engaged with systems, we absolutely appreciate that chucking 20 KPIs at them tomorrow morning is not going to fix the problem. In fact, you're going to have a bit of a nightmare. So start small. Think about what problems you really want to fix in the next month. And you might want to fix everything that's not viable. So do you want to improve the way that they advertise their jobs? Do you want to improve the number of phone calls they make? Focus on 1 or 2 KPIs that you know that you can improve. Get some really good training in there and then start measuring that. And as we all know, if we've got kids, adding to those KPIs as they mature in the business is an absolutely critical way and a clever way of getting them to want to do their job properly rather than just having to do it. Now, Canvas ad hoc reporting, Andy, over to you again.
Yeah, so let's finish off this section in terms of Canvas. So So for the people that are utilizing Canvas out there, Canvas is an extended product that Bullhorn offers alongside the core ATS and CRM function. And it really is an enterprise class reporting tool, giving to the users the ability to really report on any entity inside Bullhorn at all. So if you think about the core application, previously we looked at the dashboard cards, we looked at some of the Pulse cards that are available, we looked at goals and quotas, and there's a series of out-of-the-box, like most commonly used reports that are built in natively inside the application. Canvas goes to the next level. So Canvas is enterprise class ad hoc reporting and BI suite. So it gives the users the ability to not only report but calculate reports and really slice and dice the data that's living inside your Bullhorn application to your advantage. Now, as business requirements change, also your reporting needs change, because you only get success against the things that you measure. And Canvas really opens up that opportunity in terms of that rich data that's flowing through the integrations into your front office application to then be able to report on it. So if Canvas is something you're interested in learning more about, and you're not utilizing that technology today, please reach out to your account manager, and we'll be all very happy to set up a demonstration for you and talk you through that product.
Now, finally, again, back to Bullhorn. Now, automation is one of those things that it's a bit like AI. We talk a lot about it, but it's looking at the practical implementations and the implications on the recruiting industry. And I, for one, it's not that I'm a stalwart. I don't think that and certainly in my lifetime, we're going to replace recruiters with robots. I do think we need to take some of the processes, as Wayne very eloquently said earlier. If you can't do it or delegate it, then it needs deleting. But there is actually an argument to say you could delegate it to an automated process. So I hope I'm not stealing any of your thunder there, Andy. Over to you.
Not at all. Thank you very much, Lisa. So, artificial intelligence and machine learning are definitely buzz phrases as far as the technology sector is concerned. And Bullhorn, we're absolutely no different. We've been developing an AI roadmap, an AI strategy, really for the last 2 years now. And on the back of that, we've increased our investment in terms of core product development and our roadmap to $25 million this year. So all Bullhorn clients on the call, we're investing, and that's on the back of investing 20 million last year. So we're investing a further 25 million in feature functionality development to your core Bullhorn application. So you will all continue to benefit from that. But a key driver in terms of our investment methodology and the products and the features that we want to develop and bring to market continues to remain true and has been for several years now. And it's really all about efficiency drives. So, we very much view automation and the use of AI and machine learning as being ways to support the recruiter at a desk level becoming more efficient. And the three areas, although we could probably run a whole new webinar on this, but the three areas I just want to dive into, just to give you a flavor of what's there today. But also when we kind of consider the near-term roadmap, what you'll be seeing live in the application later this year. So I'll start off with Pulse. Obviously we touched on Pulse a little earlier in the webinar. So Pulse, just to remind everyone, is our relationship analytic tool. And the reason Pulse derives so much value for the users is the predictive analytics that's built into there. So kind of looking at the behavioral patterns inside the communication methods, be that email communications, telephone communications, even down to select notes that are placed on the records inside Bullhorn, and driving actionable insights back at the desk level. And that could be insights at the desk level, as I said, at a recruiter perspective, but also could be leading up to executive or owner sort of information where relationships are going sour. And really, what are we looking to do there? We're looking to get the team to the desk level focusing on the right things to drive the best possible commercial benefit from the investment inside Bullhorn. And this information's there, but the power of Pulse analyzes that information and then presents it back in a meaningful way. So if you're not utilizing Pulse technology, which is built into the Bullhorn application, then again, pick up the phone to support, and they will enable you to get that switched on. So I think we need to move forward into our next slide, and I want to talk about bots. So bots is a feature that we'll be bringing to market later this year. But this really puts automation and that insight-driven automation in your hands. So let's think of an example here. So maybe you have a process change, or maybe when task X happens, you'd like to send out email Y. So through bots, you'll have the ability natively inside the Bullhorn application to create these workflow rules. So if you want to drive the perfect process, but you don't want to invest in terms of either professional services work, or you don't have the skill set inside the organization to do API development, then this is really delivering automation through clicks and not code. So you don't have to be a coder. You can create your rules inside the application. And I'm super excited about this. This is going to revolutionize the way that people interact with the application. But we're going to take that a step further as well. Because this is then going to move into insight-driven automation. So not only are you going to be able to create the business rules to automate some of the most common actions that your recruiters conduct, but Bullhorn is going to suggest some business rules to you. So so we notice, or Bullhorn notices, that whenever X happens, the next step you always take is Y. Would you like me to just automate that for you? And it will create a new bot that either can be delivered at a desk individual level, or driven out right across the organization. So again, think about the efficiency savings that this brings to a desk, because that's our business. That's what we're here to do in terms of supporting our clients. Driving efficiency savings through the deployment of technology, because that just frees up more time to focus on the nurturing piece and the people, the face-to-face piece, which is so important within our sector, both client and candidate side. And then finally, I want to touch on VMS. So VMS is a vendor management systems, and VMS integration is a great way of delivering return on investment and efficiency savings, again through the use of automation. So in real simple terms, many of you may be interacting with VMS systems today to acquire jobs from some of your largest clients. So kind of think about Glassdoor as an example. Fieldglass as an example. So you will go onto the Fieldglass VMS system. You will pull down the jobs that are relevant that you want to start working on. You will load them into Bullhorn. And you will do your candidate search and start working on those jobs. When you get your candidates selected, you will then go back into the VMS system, and you will manually upload those candidates. So VMS as a technology, from Bullhorn's perspective, automates that full end-to-end workflow. So think about the time saving of pulling jobs down, committing candidate searches, and then putting relevant candidates back up into the VMS system. So you can create business rules at the front end, because if you, for example, work with Shell, you may work with Shell in a very specific way, so you only want to recruit engineers for them and not the plethora of jobs that they will have open requisitions for. So you can create business rules up front to say, I only want to see this type of jobs. As they become available inside the VMS, they will automatically appear as created jobs, created vacancies for you to work inside Bullhorn. And the respective people inside your organization will get a notification to say new jobs that are available to work for now. Once you've selected candidates for those jobs, another click of the button and you'll automatically parse up the candidate's information into the VMS. So doing direct field mapping, taking information down into Bullhorn, and then from Bullhorn back out to the VMS. But the really cool thing about this is, because VMS is a speed game, absolutely. If at any point a status changes on that vacancy, so maybe the number of applicants changes, they're required to fill the role, or maybe the vacancy closes. Worst case is you don't see that information until you go back and try to upload the candidates. But in near real time, Bullhorn, the information in Bullhorn will change as well. So if a vacancy closes, it will be the marked as closed, so you're no longer wasting your time working that job. And if, for example, the number of candidates required changes, then that will update real time as well. So, just 3 examples in terms of how Bullhorn, a few of those for today, one for the future in terms of later this year. It's all like viewing artificial intelligence and, more importantly, machine learning in terms of driving value and efficiency at a recruitment desk level.
On to the final poll, ladies and gents. Grab your mice and click away. What are you most excited about with regards to the Bullhorn product roadmap? What's the bit that you want to put in your basket or get the benefit from? Lovely.
Just to jump in there for a quick second, Lisa, the mobile app there is super popular. So just hot off the press, we had our North American client conference last year, so Engage in Boston. And it was announced as part of the product roadmap session last week that the new Bullhorn mobile app will be generally available later this year. And that's going to be a native app as well. So it's super fast and super slick.
Lovely, everybody. Thank you very much. Right, let's finish off. So obviously we've looked at 5 different things here, and the great thing is you can watch this webinar back again or give it to your friends and family, and they can watch the bits that they care about the most. They can segment it. We like segmentation into the 5 relevant pieces, and I'm sure we can make that very clear in any write-ups afterwards, Charlie and Rhiannon, about when things sit and what time they go off on. So have a think about data, integrations, getting your people using the system more effectively, your managers supporting the system, and more importantly, being supported by it. We forget that they need that help. And obviously the automation of all of this lovely stuff. But just have a please to think about, is there anything that you've popped on your notepads that you're going to go and do right away? Give us some feedback. What were the top things that you're going to take away from today's webinar? Lovely. Some answers coming in. So some people really focusing on their data. Others interested in obviously finally nailing down GDPR. After all of this time. More focus on the marketing team, absolutely. Focusing on recruiter training, so finally admitting that potentially the training they might have had isn't really fit for purpose now, because what they were trained to do is use the system, not deliver the process. So that's something else to think about. So obviously you can engage with more Bullhorn stuff. So if you want to obviously know more about Bullhorn training, just type in CRM into your chat facility. Obviously as well, you've already typed in GDPR, so that's all good stuff. We'll come back if you want to then finish off with GDPR, then be our guest. And obviously we've got Engage. Andy, what do you want to tell people about Engage? What is this Engage thing in London for 2 whole days?
What is this Engage? So Engage comes to London this year. I'm very excited about this. So Engage is our annual client conference. People that have been to it previously will recall it being called Bullhorn Live. In previous years, but this year we moved to the title of Engage, and this is in line with our global strategy. So with the move to Engage, we have a new venue. So we're moving away from Bishopsgate. We've kind of outgrown the venue, and we'll now be at the Hilton London Metropole on the 11th and 12th of September. So dates for your diary there, as was last year. It's across 2 days again this year. We're expecting probably around 1,000 people to attend, and the purpose of moving to Engage is for this to be more of a sector-specific event, and so kind of looking at some very cool keynote speakers, broadening out that content so it becomes both business and sector-specific. There will still be Bullhorn tracks, and there will also be Salesforce tracks within there as well, but very much a focus on, leadership and so like business value that you'll take from that event. So very excited to see more partners there this year. Barclay Jones will be there this year to interact with all your lovely people as well. So 11th and 12th of September, get those dates in your diary, and you can register for tickets via the Bullhorn website.
Lovely. Thank you very much, everyone, and thank you to the lovely Bullhorn for hosting this. Don't forget you can engage with Barclay Jones mainly through our recruiter newsletter. So if you want to receive a link to our newsletter so you can sign up really quickly, then just put the word news into your chat facility, and the news is not anything to do with Barclay Jones. It's all about recruiters, operations managers in recruitment, MDs, recruitment marketeers, IT bods. So pop the word news in there and we will obviously send you some stuff outside of this session. Thank you very much, everybody. And again, thanks to Bullhorn. I'll let Charlie finish off.
Thank you very much, Lisa. Yes, just to finish things off, thank you to everybody who's attended, and a huge thanks to Lisa, Wayne and Andy for taking the time to sit down and talk with us today. As Andy mentioned, Engage London is happening in September. Please feel free to go and book your tickets through the website there. But for now, I've just finished with some thank yous and a reminder that we will be sending out the recording for this webinar within the next 24 hours. So keep your eyes peeled in your mailboxes for that one coming through. But for now, thank you very much.